Tonight, everyone is getting exposed and I have evidence.
May 18th, 10:47 p.m. Prom night. Students are staring at their phones like they've just seen a ghost. Some are crying. Others are frantically texting their parents. The DJ has stopped the music mid-song, and Principal Whitmore is practically sprinting through the decorated hallways of the venue, his face the color of spoiled milk. The photo booth? Empty. The dance floor? Abandoned. 300 students dressed in their finest are standing in clusters, whispering, gasping, some covering their mouths in shock. By the end of this night, Westbridge Academy's most elite students would lose everything they held dear. Reputations built over years would crumble in minutes. College acceptances would be rescinded. Families would be humiliated. And one girl, the girl they'd spent an entire school year trying to break, would become the person who changed everything. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back 9 months. Back to September. Back to the first day of senior year, when 17-year-old Naomi Williams walked through the gates of Westbridge Academy with hope in her heart and art supplies in her backpack, completely unaware that she was about to experience the worst year of her life. Naomi Williams woke up at 5:30 a.m. on the first day of senior year, which tells you everything you need to know about how seriously she took this opportunity. She was a scholarship student at Westbridge Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the state. While most of her classmates lived in the kind of houses that have names instead of just addresses, Naomi lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment 40 minutes away from campus with her mother, a nurse who worked double shifts at County General just to keep their heads above water. That morning, Naomi stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on a simple blouse and jeans that walked the impossible line between trying too hard and not trying at all. She studied herself in the mirror, adjusting her natural hair that she'd spent 2 hours twisting the night before, trying to see what the other students would see when she walked through those doors. Her mother came into the room, still in her scrubs from the night shift, exhausted but smiling. "You look beautiful, baby," she said, kissing Naomi's forehead. "You belong there just as much as anyone else. Don't you forget that." Naomi nodded, but they both knew the truth. Having the right to be somewhere and actually belonging there are two very different things. See, Naomi had earned her spot at Westbridge through an art competition the previous spring. Her portfolio, a series of photographs documenting life in her neighborhood, the beauty in the everyday moments that most people overlooked, had beaten out 200 other applicants for a full scholarship. The prize included tuition, books, and art supplies for all 4 years of high school. It was supposed to be a dream come true. On her desk sat a stack of college brochures, and right on top was the one from Rhode Island School of Design. RISD. The school where the best artists in the country went. The school that could change her entire life. Naomi had been dreaming about it since she was 13 years old, and senior year was her shot. This was the year she'd build her portfolio, nail her grades, and prove that a girl from a 2-bedroom apartment could make it just as far as the kids who summered in the Hamptons. She gathered her art supplies, sketchbooks, charcoal pencils, her beloved Canon camera that she'd saved for 2 years to buy, and headed out the door. Her mother pressed $40 into her hand for lunch money, money Naomi knew her mother couldn't really spare. "Make it last the week," her mother whispered, and Naomi promised she would. The 40-minute bus ride to Westbridge gave Naomi plenty of time to mentally prepare herself. She watched the neighborhoods change through the window as the bus traveled from her side of town to theirs. The buildings got taller. The lawns got bigger. The cars got shinier. By the time she arrived at Westbridge Academy, with its iron gates and stone buildings that looked more like a college campus than a high school, Naomi had armored herself with quiet confidence. She knew she didn't fit in with these kids, but she was brilliant, she was talented, and she deserved to be here. She just had to keep reminding herself of that. If Westbridge Academy was a kingdom, Vivienne Ashford was its undisputed queen. 17 years old, blonde hair that looked sun-kissed even in winter, and a smile that could cut glass if she wanted it to. Vivienne's father owned half the commercial real estate in downtown, which meant she grew up in the kind of wealth where money wasn't even discussed because it was simply assumed. She was captain of the debate team, president of student council, and had a college legacy at Yale that was as guaranteed as the sunrise. But what really made Vivienne powerful wasn't her family's money or her perfect grades. It was her inner circle. Blair Chin was the tech genius of the group. Her parents owned 3 successful dental practices and had invested heavily in Silicon Valley startups, making them the kind of wealthy that comes with stock portfolios and vacation homes in Aspen. Blair managed all the school's social media influence like a corporate campaign manager. She was calculating, strategic, and could destroy someone's reputation with 3 clicks and a carefully worded caption. Then there was Sienna Rodriguez, daughter of State Senator Rodriguez, which meant she grew up around political power the way most kids grow up around pets. Sienna had perfected the art of being cruel while maintaining plausible deniability. She could insult you to your face and somehow make it sound like she was doing you a favor. She was charming, connected, and absolutely ruthless when she wanted to be. And finally, Trevor Walsh. Star athlete, already guaranteed a Division I soccer scholarship to 3 different universities. Trevor was Vivienne's boyfriend, more of an accessory than a partner, honestly. He went along with whatever Vivienne wanted because it was easier than standing up, and because his status depended on staying in her good graces. Together, they were Westbridge Academy's royalty, and everyone else was just living in their kingdom. The first day back from summer break, the cafeteria became a perfect display of the school's social hierarchy. Vivienne's table was in the center of the room, naturally, where everyone could see them. Students orbited around them like planets around the sun, some brave enough to approach and say hello, others keeping a respectful distance but always watching. The conversation at Vivienne's table that day was the kind that only happens among people who've never worried about money. Blair was talking about the new app her father's company was developing. Sienna was showing photos from her family's villa in Portugal. Trevor was complaining about having to choose between scholarship offers. Vivienne was planning her Yale dorm room aesthetic before she'd even officially applied. And then there was Naomi. She sat 3 tables away, alone, with her brown bag lunch that her mother had packed that morning. While other students were buying $15 salads from the organic food truck that parked outside every day, Naomi was eating a turkey sandwich and an apple, trying to make that $40 last the entire week like she'd promised. She pulled out her sketchbook and started drawing, something she did when she felt uncomfortable. Drawing made her invisible in a good way. It gave her something to focus on besides the fact that she recognized exactly 0 people in this cafeteria from her middle school. She didn't notice Blair taking a photo of her from across the room. She didn't see the smirk Vivienne gave when Blair showed her the picture. She didn't hear Sienna say, "The scholarship girl. She's in my AP history class. Sits in front and actually takes notes." She was just trying to get through lunch without feeling completely alone. Art class was supposed to be Naomi's safe space. It was the reason she was at Westbridge in the first place. And on that first day, Mrs. Patterson, the beloved art teacher who judged the scholarship competition and personally selected Naomi's work, announced their first major assignment of senior year. "Your college portfolio pieces," Mrs. Patterson said, walking around the room with the kind of energy only truly passionate teachers have. "This is what admissions boards will see. This is what will determine your future. I want you to create something that shows not just technical skill but soul. Something that tells me who you are." Naomi felt electricity run through her. This was it. This was her chance. For the next hour, students worked on preliminary sketches and concepts. Naomi lost herself in her work, her pencil flying across the paper as she outlined a series she'd been thinking about all summer, photographs that captured the contrast between different worlds in the same city. Light and shadow. Wealth and poverty. Belonging and exclusion. Mrs. Patterson stopped at Naomi's desk, studied her sketches and smiled. "Naomi, this is extraordinary," she said loud enough for the class to hear. "The composition, the social commentary, the emotional depth. This is exactly what top art schools want to see. This could be portfolio-defining work." Naomi felt her cheeks warm with pride. For the first time all day she felt like she belonged. 3 desks over, Vivienne was working on a landscape painting. Rolling hills, a sunset, some trees. It was technically competent but completely generic, the kind of thing you'd see in a hotel lobby. When Mrs. Patterson stopped at Vivienne's desk, she gave polite feedback. "Nice use of color, Vivienne. Perhaps think about adding a unique perspective or personal element to make it stand out more." It wasn't criticism really. Just polite feedback. But Vivienne wasn't used to polite feedback. She was used to being the best at everything, and in a room where Naomi Williams existed, she was suddenly just adequate. The bell rang. Students packed up their supplies. Naomi carefully gathered her sketches, sliding them into her portfolio case with the kind of care you give something precious. She was walking down the hallway, mentally planning her shoot locations when it happened. Vivienne was walking in the opposite direction with Blair and Sienna, laughing about something on Blair's phone. They were taking up most of the hallway, the way people do when they're used to others moving out of their way. Naomi stepped to the side to let them pass. But Vivienne stepped the same direction. And suddenly Naomi's portfolio case was on the ground, sketches and photographs spilling across the hallway floor like fallen leaves. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Vivienne said, her hand flying to her mouth in an exaggerated display of shock. These hallways are just so crowded when everyone's here, you know? Naomi knelt down immediately, trying to gather her work before people stepped on it. Students were walking past, around her, some not even noticing. It's okay, Naomi said quietly, reaching for a photograph that had slid near Vivienne's designer shoes. Here, let me help, Vivienne said, but she didn't move. Blair, though, had her phone out. She was filming. Just a quick video of Naomi on her hands and knees, scrambling to pick up her work, looking small and embarrassed and exactly as out of place as they wanted her to feel. Within 30 seconds of the incident, Blair had posted the video to Instagram with the caption, "When you can't walk and carry things at the same time, grimacing face #Monday struggles." Within 3 minutes, it had 47 likes. Within 5 minutes, it had been shared to 3 different group chats. Within 10 minutes, half the school had seen it. Naomi gathered the last of her sketches, her hands shaking slightly. She noticed one of her photographs, a beautiful shot she'd taken of sunrise over her neighborhood, had a footprint on it. The print was from an expensive athletic shoe, probably Trevor's, who'd been walking with Vivienne and hadn't even noticed he'd stepped on someone's work. She held the ruined photograph for a moment, staring at the muddy print that had destroyed hours of work, and then she carefully placed it in her portfolio with the others. She didn't cry in the hallway. She made it to the bathroom first. By the time she locked herself in a stall, her phone was already buzzing with notifications. Students she'd never even spoken to were tagging her in the comments. Some were laughing. Some were adding their own jokes. A few were defending her, but their voices were drowned out by the noise. Naomi sat on the closed toilet lid, fighting tears, watching her phone light up again and again and again. This was only the first day. She had 279 more to go. Now here's my question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew exactly what was happening to you, but felt completely powerless to stop it? Drop a comment below and let me know, because what happens next is going to shock you. And if you want to see how Naomi transforms from a target into the person who brings down an entire social hierarchy, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what she does at prom. By October, Naomi had learned to navigate Westbridge Academy like someone walking through a minefield. Head down, eyes forward, don't make waves. The hallway incident from the first day had taught her that even existing in the same space as Vivienne and her friends was dangerous. But then came the homecoming dance announcement, and with it, the kind of group project that teachers think builds character but actually just reinforces every social hierarchy that already exists. Mrs. Hernandez, the AP literature teacher, announced it on a Monday morning. You'll be working in groups of 4 to analyze the social commentary in The Great Gatsby. I've already assigned the groups, and yes, before you ask, no, you cannot switch. Naomi felt her stomach drop when Mrs. Hernandez read the names. Group 7, Vivienne Ashford, Sienna Rodriguez, Blair Chin, and Naomi Williams. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Vivienne turned around in her seat, gave Naomi a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "Great. This is going to be so fun." It was not going to be fun. That afternoon, the 4 of them stood in the hallway after class, supposedly planning their first meeting. Vivienne was typing on her phone, not really paying attention. Blair was checking her schedule. Sienna was reapplying lip gloss in a compact mirror. "So," Naomi said, trying to sound confident, "when should we meet to divide up the work?" "Oh." Vivienne looked up like she just remembered Naomi was there. "We're meeting Wednesday at Provisions. You know where that is, right? Downtown?" Naomi knew exactly where it was. Provisions was the cafe where Westbridge students went to be seen. Expensive coffee, even more expensive pastries, and the kind of atmosphere where you needed to buy something every hour just to justify taking up table space. "What time?" Naomi asked, already calculating how much this was going to cost her. 4:30, Blair said, not looking up from her phone. "We'll probably be there for a few hours, so maybe bring money for dinner too. They have amazing truffle fries." Naomi did the math in her head. Coffee, maybe a pastry to justify sitting there, possibly food. She was looking at $20, maybe $30. Nearly her entire week's lunch budget. "Actually," Naomi said carefully, "what if we met at the school library instead? It's free and we'd have access to all the reference materials we need." The 3 of them looked at her like she'd suggested they meet in a dumpster. Sienna actually laughed. "The library? What are we, freshmen?" "The library smells like old books and desperation," Blair added, wrinkling her nose. Vivienne put a hand on Naomi's shoulder, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "I get that not everyone can afford Provisions, but we've already made plans. Maybe you could just, get water?" I think water is free. Naomi felt her face burn, but she nodded. Okay. Wednesday at 4:30. Wednesday came, and Naomi showed up at Provisions at 4:20, wanting to be early, wanting to prove she was committed. She ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small drip coffee for $4, and sat at a corner table, textbook and notebook ready. 4:30 came and went. By 5 o'clock, Naomi texted the group chat, "Hey, I'm here at Provisions. Are you guys close?" No response. By 5:30 she texted again, "Just checking in. Should I order something else or are we meeting soon?" At 6:15 her phone finally buzzed. It was Vivienne. "OMG, I'm so sorry, cheer practice ran late and then I completely forgot. Can we reschedule?" Naomi had spent 2 hours sitting in an expensive cafe nursing a single coffee while the baristas gave her increasingly annoyed looks. They rescheduled for Friday. Same place, same time. Friday, Naomi showed up again. This time she waited until 4:45 to text. Blair responded, "Oh shoot, didn't Vivienne tell you? We moved it to tomorrow because Sienna has a thing." They hadn't moved it. They just never planned to show up. The pattern continued for 2 weeks. Meetings scheduled and cancelled. Group chats where Naomi would suggest times and get left unread. Conversations that would happen without her and then get deleted before she could see them. Finally, Mrs. Hernandez asked for a progress report. Vivienne raised her hand immediately. "Mrs. Hernandez, our group is having some issues. Naomi keeps missing our meetings, so the rest of us have been having to do all the work." Naomi's head snapped up. "That's not true. You keep canceling." "We've met 4 times, Sienna interrupted smoothly. "You haven't shown up to any of them. Because you changed the times without telling me." Mrs. Hernandez held up her hand. "Ladies, I don't want to hear excuses from anyone. Naomi, you need to make this project a priority. Vivienne, make sure everyone is included in the planning. I expect to see equal contribution from all group members." After class, Naomi approached Mrs. Hernandez's desk. "They're lying. They keep scheduling meetings and not showing up, or they change times and don't tell me." Mrs. Hernandez looked tired. "Do you have proof of that?" Screenshots of the group chat. Naomi pulled out her phone, but the group chat had been deleted and remade without her. She was no longer even in the conversation. They must have made a new chat," Naomi said weakly. Mrs. Hernandez sighed. "Naomi, I understand group projects can be frustrating, but I can't referee every interpersonal conflict. I need you to find a way to make this work." So Naomi did. She did the entire project herself. She spent 2 weeks researching, analyzing, and writing a 15-page paper on the social commentary in The Great Gatsby, drawing parallels between the class divisions in the novel and the modern world. She created a presentation with visuals and quotes and citations. She formatted it perfectly, put all 4 names on it and submitted it 3 days early. When presentation day came, Vivienne stood at the front of the classroom reading from Naomi's work like she'd written every word herself. Blair advanced the slides at the right moments. Sienna added commentary with the confidence of someone who'd spent weeks on the project. Mrs. Hernandez was impressed. "Excellent work, ladies. This is exactly the kind of analysis I was hoping to see." They got an A. After class, as the 4 of them walked out, Vivienne turned to Naomi and said, "Thanks for finally contributing. See, it wasn't so hard." Naomi said nothing. What could she say? That night, Naomi's mother noticed her daughter had barely touched her dinner. "Baby, you've been so quiet lately," her mother said, sitting down across from her. "Is everything okay at school?" Naomi wanted to tell her everything. About the hallway incident, about the meetings that never happened, about doing an entire project alone while 3 other students took credit. But when she looked at her mother, exhausted from another double shift, stress lines deepening around her eyes, wearing scrubs that were starting to fade from too many washes, she couldn't add to her burden. "I'm fine, Mama," Naomi said. "Just focused on my work." Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. "Baby, just keep your head down, focus on your work. Only 8 more months. 8 more months and you'll be at RSD and none of this will matter anymore." 8 more months felt like a lifetime. November brought a new kind of cruelty, the kind that attacked the very foundation of why Naomi was at Westbridge in the first place. It started with whispers. Naomi would walk past groups of students and hear conversations that stopped the moment she got close. She'd feel eyes on her in the hallway, see people looking at their phones and then looking at her. Then came the anonymous posts on the school's online forum. The forum was supposed to be for school-related discussions, homework help, club announcements, that kind of thing. But like all anonymous platforms, it had become a place where people said things they'd never say out loud. The first post appeared on a Tuesday. Question: do you think scholarship programs should be based on merit or diversity? Asking for a friend. By itself it seemed innocent, a philosophical question. But the comments that followed made the target clear. I mean, if it was really about merit, wouldn't the spots go to the students with the best grades and test scores? Some people only get in because of quotas. It's not really fair to the students who actually earn their spots. Not naming names, but there's literally a scholarship student in my art class who gets praised for mediocre work while actually talented students get ignored. Naomi read the thread in the library during lunch, her hands shaking. She knew they were talking about her. Everyone knew they were talking about her. Blair had engineered the posts perfectly. Nothing was explicitly against the rules. No names were mentioned. It was all just questions and observations that created a narrative. Naomi Williams didn't really deserve to be at Westbridge Academy. More posts appeared throughout the week. Why do scholarship students always act like they're better than everyone else? There's a difference between being smart and being a diversity admit. Some people need to realize that attending Westbridge is a privilege, not a right. The comments section became a battleground. Some students defended scholarship programs. Others piled on with their own carefully worded attacks. But the message was clear. Naomi was an outsider, an interloper, someone who hadn't earned her place. The campaign worked. When AP exam study groups started forming in November, Naomi, who had the highest grade in AP Calculus, AP Literature, and AP History, wasn't invited to a single one. She saw the group chats being formed. She watched students exchanging phone numbers and making plans to meet at each other's houses. She heard them talking about which practice tests they were using and which review books were best. Nobody asked her to join. One day after soccer practice, Naomi was in the hallway gathering her things from her locker when she overheard Trevor talking to one of his teammates near the water fountain. "You studying with anyone for the calc exam?" the teammate asked. "Yeah, Vivienne's organizing a group at her place this weekend," Trevor said. "Her dad's hiring a tutor and everything." "Nice. Think there's room for one more?" Trevor lowered his voice, but not enough. "I mean, the scholarship kids are fine, but they make everything so serious, you know? Like, we're trying to study and also have fun, not turn it into some intense competition." The teammate laughed. "Yeah, I know what you mean. Some people need to remember that not everything has to be life or death." Naomi closed her locker carefully, quietly, and walked away before they could see her face. But here's the thing they didn't understand. For Naomi, it was life or death. Vivienne had a legacy spot at Yale. If she got a B instead of an A, it wouldn't matter. Blair's parents could donate a new computer lab if her grades slipped. Sienna's father could make a phone call to any university in the country. Trevor had 3 Division I scholarship offers for soccer. His academics barely mattered. But Naomi? Naomi's grades were everything. They were her ticket out, her proof that she belonged, her only leverage in a system designed to keep people like her on the outside. So while Vivienne's group studied with hired tutors in a mansion with a pool, Naomi studied alone in the public library until closing time, then continued at home at the kitchen table while her mother slept between shifts. Her grades stayed perfect. Straight A's across every class. But something else changed. She stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria. The stares, the whispers, the constant feeling of being watched and judged. It was too much. Instead, she'd take her brown bag lunch to the art room, where Mrs. Patterson let her work during free periods. Or she'd spend time in the photography darkroom, developing film in the quiet darkness where nobody could see her face. Mrs. Patterson noticed. Of course she noticed. One afternoon in late November, she found Naomi in the darkroom for the 3rd day in a row. "Naomi," Mrs. Patterson said gently, "you're here every day. Where are your friends?" Naomi didn't look up from the photograph she was developing. "I'm focused on my portfolio." "Your portfolio is important, but so is having a support system. High school isn't just about academics and art. It's about connections, relationships, finding your people." Naomi finally looked at Mrs. Patterson, and for just a moment, let her guard down. "What if your people aren't here?" Mrs. Patterson didn't have an answer for that. The Winter Art Exhibition was the biggest event of the fall semester at Westbridge Academy. It was where student artists displayed their best work for the entire school community, including parents, alumni, and, most importantly, college recruiters. For Naomi, it was everything. This was her chance to show what she could do, to prove that she wasn't just a diversity admit, but a genuine talent. RISD's regional recruiter was confirmed to attend. This was the opportunity she'd been working toward since freshman year. When Mrs. Patterson announced that Naomi had been selected to display 3 pieces in the exhibition, Rare for any student, almost unheard of for a junior, Naomi felt like she could finally breathe. "These are stunning, Naomi," Mrs. Patterson said, reviewing the selected works. The photograph series of urban landscapes, the mixed media piece about identity, and this sculpture exploring the concept of home. These could anchor the entire exhibition. Naomi spent 2 weeks preparing. She matted and framed her photographs herself because professional framing was too expensive. She repaired a tiny crack in her sculpture with such careful precision that you couldn't even see it had been damaged. She wrote artist statements for each piece that explained her vision and technique. The night before the exhibition, she got permission to stay late at school to perfect her arrangement. The show would open the next morning at 9, and she wanted everything to be flawless. She spent 3 hours adjusting the height of her photographs, angling the lighting on her sculpture, making sure her mixed media piece was positioned where the natural light from the windows would hit it just right. At 7:30 p.m., Mrs. Patterson checked on her. "Naomi, it's perfect. You need to go home and rest." "Just a few more minutes," Naomi said, stepping back to view her arrangement from different angles. Mrs. Patterson smiled. "Okay, but the janitor is locking up at 8:30, so don't stay too late." Naomi left at 8:15, turning back to look at her work one more time before walking out the door. It was perfect. It was everything she'd hoped it would be. She didn't see the 3 figures who entered the building at 9:47 p.m. Security footage, that mysteriously corrupted security footage that would later be reviewed, showed 3 girls entering through the east entrance. One of them used a key card to access the building after hours. Later investigation would reveal it was a student council master key that Blair had copied months earlier. The footage showed them entering the art room where the exhibition was set up. It showed them inside for 17 minutes. And then it showed them leaving. The footage corrupted after that. Technical glitch, the school's IT department would later claim. These things happen. Naomi arrived at school the next morning at 7:30 a.m., wanting to be there early to see her work in the morning light. She walked into the art room and stopped breathing. Her photograph series was destroyed. Someone had spilled black paint across all 3 images, the kind of deliberate destruction that couldn't possibly be an accident. The photographs she'd spent weeks capturing and days developing were ruined beyond repair. Her mixed media piece about identity had been torn. The fabric she'd carefully layered, the paper she'd delicately collaged, the paint she'd precisely applied, all of it ripped and scattered. Her sculpture, her beautiful sculpture exploring the concept of home, was cracked. Not broken completely but damaged in a way that made it look unstable, poorly constructed, unprofessional. Naomi stood in the doorway, unable to move, unable to process what she was seeing. Mrs. Patterson arrived at 7:45 and found Naomi standing there, tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "Oh my God, Naomi. What happened?" "I don't know," Naomi said, her voice barely working. "I left it perfect. It was perfect." Mrs. Patterson immediately called Principal Davidson. She pulled up the security footage. She reviewed every frame from the night before. And then she saw it. The footage of 3 girls entering the building. Entering the art room. The timestamp showing they were inside during the exact window when the damage must have occurred. But when she tried to show Principal Davidson, the footage after 9:50 p.m. was corrupted. Just static and digital noise. Principal Davidson, whose own family had donated the new athletic facility and whose daughter had graduated from Westbridge 2 years earlier, looked at the destroyed artwork inside. "This is unfortunate," he said. "But it might have been an accident. Students were here late working on other projects. Someone might have bumped into things, knocked something over, not realized the damage they'd caused." "An accident?" Mrs. Patterson's voice was sharp. "Sir, look at this. The paint is deliberately poured. The fabric is deliberately torn. This was vandalism." "Without clear footage, we can't make accusations," Principal Davidson said. "I understand this is upsetting, but we need evidence before we can take action." Naomi knew the truth. She knew exactly who had done this. But knowing and proving are 2 different things. The exhibition opened 3 hours later. Parents and alumni wandered through the gallery, admiring student work. The RISD recruiter arrived, clipboard in hand, taking notes on pieces that stood out. Where Naomi's work should have been displayed was empty space. Just a name card, Naomi Williams, and nothing to show. Mrs. Patterson tried to explain to anyone who asked that there had been an incident, that Naomi's work had been damaged, that it wasn't representative of her talent. But reputations aren't built on explanations. They're built on what people see. And what people saw was empty space where a scholarship student's work should have been. Whispers started immediately. Did she not finish on time? Maybe the pressure got to her. I heard the pieces weren't actually that good and she withdrew them herself. Scholarship students sometimes struggle with the rigor here. By the end of the day, Naomi Williams had gained a new reputation: unreliable artist. Someone who couldn't handle the pressure. Someone who talked a big game but couldn't deliver when it mattered. The RISD recruiter left without ever seeing Naomi's work. Naomi withdrew from the exhibition officially, and she didn't tell anyone the truth about what happened. What was the point? Who would believe her without proof? She just quietly removed her name card from the wall and walked out of the gallery while other students celebrated their displayed work. If what happened in December was cruel, what happened in January was diabolical. Blair Chin wasn't just good with technology. She was exceptional. She'd been coding since she was 9, building apps since she was 12, and had spent her entire freshman year of high school teaching herself advanced AI applications just for fun. So when she decided to escalate the campaign against Naomi, she had tools that most high school bullies could only dream of. It started on January 9th, 3 days after winter break ended. An audio clip started circulating on the school's private Discord server. It was Naomi's voice, or at least it sounded exactly like Naomi's voice, saying things that Naomi would never say. "I'm so sick of these entitled rich kids thinking they're better than everyone," the voice said. Like, Vivienne Ashford is literally the dumbest person I've ever met. The only reason she gets good grades is because her daddy pays teachers off. Another clip: "Mrs. Patterson only praises my work because she feels sorry for me. It's not actually that good, but they need their diversity success story." Another: "Trevor is such a joke. He thinks he's hot shit because he can kick a ball, but he's going to peak in high school and end up working at his dad's car dealership." The voice sounded exactly like Naomi. Same cadence, same slight rasp, same way of emphasizing certain words. The clips spread through the school like wildfire. Student to student, group chat to group chat, Discord server to Snapchat story to Instagram DM. By lunchtime on January 9th, the entire school had heard them. Naomi found out when she walked into AP history and the entire class went silent. She felt eyes on her, hostile and cold. "What?" she said to no one in particular. A girl she'd never spoken to turned around in her seat. "Wow, you're really going to pretend you don't know?" "Know what?" The girl held up her phone, played the audio clip. Naomi listened to her own voice saying terrible things she'd never said, and felt the floor drop out from under her. "That's not me," she said immediately. "I never said any of that." "It's literally your voice," someone else said. "It's not. Someone faked it." But the more she insisted, the guiltier she sounded. By the end of the day, Naomi was called to Principal Davidson's office. He sat behind his desk, hands folded, looking disappointed in a way that felt practiced. "Naomi, several students have come forward saying they feel unsafe because of things you've said about them." "I didn't say anything," Naomi protested. "Those audio clips are fake. Someone made them using AI or something. That's not my voice. I mean, it is my voice, but I never said those words." Principal Davidson pulled up the clips on his computer. "It sounds pretty clear to me. Because it's a deep fake. There are programs that can clone voices from just a few samples. Someone took my voice from class presentations or videos and made fake clips." "That's a serious accusation, Naomi. Do you have any proof that these are fake? Do you have any proof they're real?" "I have multiple witnesses who heard them and feel threatened by them." Naomi felt hysteria rising in her throat. "This is insane. I never said any of those things. I don't even talk about other students. I barely talk to anyone." "I'm going to have to suspend you for 2 days pending investigation," Principal Davidson said. "This is for the safety of our community while we determine what actually happened." "You're suspending me for something I didn't do? For something that's clearly fake?" "The suspension is precautionary. If the investigation clears you, it will be removed from your record." "Not when." Naomi's mother had to leave work in the middle of her shift to pick up her daughter from school. She lost 4 hours of pay she couldn't afford to lose. In the car ride home, her mother gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. "This is exactly what I was afraid of when you went to that school," her mother said, her voice tight with anger. Not anger at Naomi, but anger at the situation, at the injustice, at the system that was so clearly designed to chew up and spit out kids like her daughter. "I didn't do anything, Mama," Naomi said, crying. "I swear I didn't say those things." "I know, baby. I know you didn't." The investigation took 5 days. 5 days of Naomi sitting at home while the story spread and morphed. 5 days of students at Westbridge adding their own details to the narrative. 5 days of her reputation being destroyed one rumor at a time. Technical analysis eventually proved the audio clips were fake. A forensic audio specialist that Mrs. Patterson insisted the school hire found digital signatures consistent with AI voice cloning software. Naomi was cleared. The suspension was removed from her record. She was allowed to return to school. But here's the thing about being accused. Even when you're proven innocent, people remember the accusation more than the exoneration. When Naomi returned to school, students avoided her in the hallways. They stopped talking when she approached. They looked at her with suspicion, like maybe the investigation got it wrong, like maybe she really had said those things. Teachers looked at her differently too. Not all of them, but enough. There was a wariness in their eyes, a hesitation before calling on her in class. Only Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Chin, the math teacher who'd always been kind to her, treated her the same as before. Everyone else had already decided who she was. And the worst part? Blair had covered her tracks perfectly. The audio clips had been distributed through anonymous accounts. There was no way to prove who created them. Naomi knew it was Blair. She knew it with absolute certainty. But knowing and proving were still two different things. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do, and no matter what you said, no one believed you? Drop your story in the comments, because you need to understand what Naomi is feeling right now to truly appreciate what she's about to do. And if you're invested in seeing how this story ends, how one girl with nothing left to lose becomes the person who brings down an entire social hierarchy, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. What happens next is going to change everything. February 14th. Valentine's Day. The day that's supposed to be about love and friendship and all those Hallmark card sentiments that feel hollow when you're already drowning. Westbridge Academy, like most high schools, did a Valentine's Day fundraiser every year. For $5, you could send a candygram to another student, a little bag of chocolate with a personalized message attached. The student council would deliver them during lunch period in front of the entire cafeteria, and it was always this big production. Popular kids would get dozens of them. Best friends would send them to each other. Secret admirers would make their moves. It was supposed to be fun. Naomi wasn't expecting to receive anything. She'd made peace with that. She sat at her usual table in the back corner of the cafeteria. She'd started eating there again, figuring isolation in public was somehow better than hiding in the art room every single day, with her lunch and her sketchbook keeping to herself. The student council members started their delivery rounds at 12:15, weaving through the cafeteria with bags full of candygrams, calling out names like some kind of twisted game show. Popular kids squealed when their names were called. Groups of friends laughed as they read their messages out loud. A few people got promposal candygrams, and the cafeteria would erupt in applause. Naomi kept her head down, kept drawing, tried to ignore the spectacle. And then she heard her name. Naomi Williams. Her head snapped up. A student council member, a sophomore she'd never spoken to, was standing at her table, holding a single candygram. The cafeteria got quieter. Not silent, but quieter. People were watching. Naomi reached for the candygram with shaking hands. Maybe someone was being nice. Maybe Mrs. Patterson had sent her one to cheer her up. Maybe it was a peace offering from someone who felt guilty about how she'd been treated. She opened the card. To the scholarship case, thanks for reminding us how good we have it. XOXO. The words hit her like a physical blow. She read it again, hoping she'd misunderstood. But no. It was clear. It was cruel. And it was public. Someone at a nearby table had seen her face change, had leaned over to see what the card said, and within seconds the message was being whispered from table to table. Then someone laughed. Just one person at first. Then another. Then the laughter spread like a contagion across the cafeteria. Not everyone was laughing. Some people looked uncomfortable. A few looked genuinely horrified. But enough people were laughing that it felt like the whole room was mocking her. Naomi sat very still for a moment, the candygram in her hands, the laughter washing over her like a wave. And then she stood up. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She didn't yell or throw the candygram or make a scene. She just calmly gathered her things, her lunch, her sketchbook, her backpack, and walked out of the cafeteria with her head held high. She walked through the hallways to the parking lot, got in her car, the beat-up Honda Civic her mother had saved for 2 years to buy, and drove home. She didn't sign out at the office. She didn't tell anyone she was leaving. She just left. And she didn't come back for 3 days. Her mother found her that first afternoon, curled up on her bed, surrounded by envelopes. College rejection letters. 8 of them, to be exact. 8 colleges that Naomi had applied to early, colleges that should have been safeties based on her grades and portfolio, all sending variations of the same message. We regret to inform you. Her mother picked up one of the letters, read it, then another, then another. Baby, her mother said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. When did these come? Over the past 2 weeks, Naomi said, her voice hollow. I didn't tell you because I kept thinking the next one would be different. I kept thinking one of them would say yes. Her mother's face hardened in a way Naomi had rarely seen. Something's wrong. With your grades? Your portfolio? Your test scores? You should be getting acceptances, not rejections. I know. Someone did something. Someone sabotaged your applications. I know. Naomi told her mother about the Valentine's Day candygram. She told her about the past 6 months, all of it, everything she'd been holding back to protect her mother from worrying. Her mother listened, and with every detail, her expression grew darker. When Naomi finished, her mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, We're transferring you. I don't care what it takes. I'll pick up night shifts, weekend shifts, I'll work every hour God gives me, but you're not going back to that school. Mama? I mean it, Naomi. I let you talk me into staying before, but this has gone too far. They're trying to destroy your future. We're getting you out of there. No. The word came out harder than Naomi intended. She sat up, looked her mother in the eye. No, she repeated. I'm not running. I'm not letting them win. I'm finishing this year. Her mother shook her head. Baby, this isn't about winning or losing. This is about your mental health, your safety, your future. This is about my future, Naomi interrupted. If I run now, they win. They get to tell the story. They get to say I couldn't handle it, that I didn't belong there, that I was weak. But I'm not weak, Mama. I'm not. Something in Naomi's voice had changed. It wasn't broken anymore. It wasn't defeated. It was hard and cold and determined. Her mother heard it too. She studied her daughter's face for a long moment. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. Naomi looked at the rejection letters scattered across her bed, then back at her mother. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth, she said. Every single person who laughed, who whispered, who believed their lies, they're all going to see exactly who these people really are. Her mother didn't ask how. She just pulled her daughter into a hug and held her tight. When Naomi returned to school 3 days later, she was different. People could see it in the way she walked through the hallways, in the way she held her head, in the way she looked at Vivienne and Blair and Sienna without flinching. She was done being their victim. Now she was becoming something else entirely. March was when Naomi Williams disappeared in a way. Not physically, she was still at school every day, still sitting in classes, still turning in assignments. But emotionally, socially, she became a ghost. She stopped reacting to the provocations entirely. When Vivienne made a snide comment in the hallway, Naomi didn't flinch. When Blair posted something clearly directed at her on social media, Naomi didn't respond. When Sienna accidentally bumped into her in the cafeteria, Naomi just stepped aside and kept walking. It was like she built a wall around herself, and nothing they did could penetrate it anymore. What they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that Naomi wasn't withdrawing. She was working. She spent every free moment in the photography darkroom. Before school, during lunch, after the last bell rang, she was there in the red-lit darkness, developing film, printing photographs, organizing her work with an obsessive precision that would have worried anyone who understood what she was doing. Mr. Chin, the math teacher who also served as advisor to the photography club, started noticing the pattern in early March. He'd walk past the darkroom and see the light on under the door. He'd check the sign-in sheet and see Naomi's name, day after day after day. He'd see her leaving campus at 6 or 7 p.m., long after most students had gone home. One afternoon he knocked on the darkroom door. "Come in," Naomi's voice called from inside. Mr. Chin entered to find her surrounded by photographs. Not just a few, hundreds of them organized on every available surface, pinned to a corkboard, laid out in careful sequences. And as he looked closer, he realized what he was seeing. Photographs of hallway interactions. Screenshots of social media posts printed out and annotated. Candid shots of Vivienne's group that captured moments they probably didn't realize were being documented. Images of the cafeteria social hierarchy. Wide shots of the parking lot showing the disparity in cars. Close-ups of faces, cruelty, laughter, exclusion, all captured in crystal clarity. "Naomi," Mr. Chin said slowly, "what are you working on?" Naomi looked up from the photograph she was developing. Her face was calm, focused, almost serene. "A project about truth," she said simply. Mr. Chin moved closer, examining the photographs more carefully. Each one was labeled with dates and context. There was a whole section documenting the group project incident. Screenshots of the deleted group chat, photos of Naomi alone at provisions, time-stamped evidence of when the other members did and didn't show up. Another section showed the progression of anonymous forum posts attacking scholarship students, with IP tracking data that Naomi had somehow obtained. Another section documented the art show, photos of her work before it was destroyed, after it was destroyed, screenshots of the corrupted security footage timestamp, and a detailed timeline of who had access to the building that night. There were printed transcripts of audio clips, including the deep-fake audio that had gotten her suspended, with technical analysis showing the digital signatures that proved they were fabricated. But it went deeper than just her own experiences. Naomi had documented academic dishonesty in Vivienne's circle. There were screenshots of a website that sold essays to students, with payment receipts showing Vivienne's name. There was evidence of Trevor's college application essays being written by a private tutor. Emails she'd somehow obtained showing the tutor sending completed essays to Trevor's email address. There was evidence of Blair hacking into the school system to change grades, server logs, access records, digital fingerprints that would be damning to anyone who understood technology. There was a comprehensive timeline showing how Vivienne, Blair, and Sienna coordinated their campaign against her. Screenshots of group chats where they planned their next move. Photos capturing them together immediately before incidents occurred. A pattern so clear it was impossible to deny. Mr. Chin felt his breath catch in his throat. "Naomi," he said carefully, "this is bigger than just a school project." "I know," Naomi said. She was attaching a photograph to the corkboard, a shot of the entire student council with circles around Blair and two other members who had access to security system controls. "That's why I'm entering it in the National Student Art and Documentary Competition." Mr. Chin blinked. The national competition? The National Student Art and Documentary Competition was one of the most prestigious contests for high school students in the country. Winners were featured in national publications, received substantial scholarships, and often had their work exhibited in major museums. But more importantly, entries were reviewed by journalists, educators, and documentary filmmakers. Entries became public record. "The submission deadline is April 15th, Naomi continued, pulling out a thick binder. "I've been working on the written component, a 20-page analysis of social hierarchies, systemic bullying, and institutional complicity in elite educational settings. The photographs serve as evidence. The timeline shows the pattern. The documentation proves it's not isolated incidents but coordinated harassment." She opened the binder to show Mr. Chin. It was meticulously organized with tabs, citations, cross-references. It read like a legal brief, not a high school art project. "I've been documenting since October," Naomi explained. "Every incident. Every conversation I overheard. Every social media post before they could delete it. I started because I wanted proof that I wasn't crazy, that it really was happening. But then I realized I had something bigger. I had a pattern. I had evidence. I had a story that needed to be told." Mr. Chin sat down heavily in the darkroom's only chair. "Naomi, do you understand what will happen if you submit this?" "Yes. The entire school will see it. The administration. The students involved. Their parents. Yes. This could have serious consequences for everyone named in here." "Good." The single word hung in the air between them. Mr. Chin looked at this 17-year-old girl who'd spent the past 6 months being systematically destroyed by her peers, who'd been pushed to the breaking point and beyond, and who had responded not with violence or revenge, but with documentation. "The competition rules say the work has to be original and created during the current school year," Mr. Chin said slowly. "You're not breaking any rules. And if the documentation is accurate—" "It's all accurate," Naomi said firmly. "Every single piece. I have timestamps, metadata, witnesses. I'm not fabricating anything. I'm just showing what happened." "Then this isn't revenge," Mr. Chin said. "This is testimony." Naomi met his eyes. "Exactly." Mr. Chin stood up, walked around the darkroom one more time, taking in the scope of what Naomi had created. It was devastating. It was comprehensive. It was undeniable. "You'll need a faculty sponsor to submit to the competition," he said finally. "I'll do it. But Naomi, I need you to be absolutely sure about this. Once you submit, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure," Naomi said. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Mr. Chin nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure it's perfect." For the next 3 weeks they worked together. Mr. Chin helped her refine the presentation, strengthen the narrative structure, ensure every piece of evidence was properly contextualized. He taught her how to present documentation in a way that was emotionally compelling but factually unassailable. They titled it The Price of Admission, a documentary study of systemic bullying in elite educational settings. They submitted it on April 14, one day before the deadline. And then they waited. The prom announcement came on April 16, the day after Naomi submitted her documentary competition entry. Principal Davidson made the announcement during morning assembly, his voice booming with enthusiasm about Westbridge Academy's most anticipated event of the year. This year's prom theme is A Night Under the Stars, he announced to scattered applause and excited whispers. It will be held on May 18 at the Riverside Country Club, and I promise you, this will be a night you'll never forget. Naomi sat in the back of the auditorium, barely listening. Prom felt like something happening in a different universe, something that had nothing to do with her. Prom court nominations were announced the following week. Vivienne Ashford was nominated for prom queen, obviously. The announcement was met with squeals and applause from her section of the cafeteria. Blair and Sienna were nominated for the court as well. Trevor was nominated for prom king. It was all so predictable, so perfectly orchestrated, so exactly what everyone expected. Naomi didn't even bother to vote. But then, on April 23, the student council made a special announcement. Blair Chin, as student council vice president, stood at the front of the cafeteria during lunch with a microphone and that calculating smile she wore when she was about to do something she thought was clever. So, we have a really exciting update about prom, Blair said. This year we're bringing in a professional photography team to document the event. But we also want to feature the work of our own talented students. Naomi felt a cold finger of dread trace down her spine. We've decided to give one student photographer the honor of creating an artistic documentation of prom night, Blair continued. And after reviewing portfolios and discussing with the photography department, we've chosen Naomi Williams. There was a moment of surprised silence, then scattered applause. Naomi sat frozen at her table, her sandwich halfway to her mouth. Blair was still talking. Naomi's eye for capturing authentic moments will be so valuable in documenting this special night. We can't wait to see what she creates. Across the cafeteria, Vivienne stood up and started a slow clap, her smile sharp as broken glass. Others joined in and soon the whole room was applauding. Naomi understood immediately what was happening. They weren't honoring her. They were putting her in her place one more time. They wanted her at prom not as a guest, not as a participant, but as the help. They wanted her behind the camera while they danced and laughed and created memories. They wanted to reinforce one final time that she was an outsider, an observer, someone who documented other people's joy rather than experiencing her own. It was brilliant in a cruel way. They were using her talent against her, turning what should have been an honor into another reminder that she didn't belong. After lunch, Vivienne approached Naomi in the hallway, flanked by Blair and Sienna. "Oh Naomi," Vivienne said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "this is just perfect. Your eye for authentic moments will be so valuable. I mean, you're always watching everyone anyway, right? Now you'll have an official reason." Blair laughed. "Plus, this way you can actually afford to be at prom. Win-win." Sienna added, "I'm sure whatever you're planning to wear won't photograph well anyway. Better to be behind the camera." They waited for Naomi to react, to argue, to show some sign that their barb had landed. Instead, Naomi smiled. A small, genuine smile that didn't reach her eyes but conveyed something that made all three of them momentarily uncomfortable. "I'd be honored," Naomi said calmly. "Actually, I've been preparing a special collection. This is perfect timing." Vivienne's group exchanged glances, trying to figure out if Naomi was being sarcastic. "A special collection?" Blair asked suspiciously. "For my portfolio," Naomi said. "I've been working on a documentary photography project all year. Prom will be the perfect culmination." "Oh," Vivienne said, her confidence returning. "You mean like, pretty photos of prom? That's so sweet." "Something like that," Naomi agreed. The three girls laughed and walked away, convinced they'd won one more round. What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly know, was that the National Student Art and Documentary Competition announced finalists on May 1st. And those finalists' work would be published on the competition's website for public viewing on May 15th. 3 days before prom. Naomi walked to the darkroom where Mr. Chen was waiting. "They took the bait," she said. Mr. Chen looked worried. "Naomi, are you sure about the timing? If your documentary goes public 3 days before prom." "That's exactly when it needs to go public," Naomi said. The competition rules say finalists' work is published 2 weeks before the final judging. If I'm selected as a finalist, and Mr. Chin, we both know this work is good enough, then May 15th is when the truth comes out. And May 18th at prom is when everyone has to face it. They'll know it was intentional. They'll know you planned this. Good, Naomi said. I want them to know. I want them to understand that I wasn't just surviving these past months. I was documenting. I was building. I was preparing. And now they've just handed me the perfect ending to my story, them celebrating at prom while the entire world sees what they really are. Mr. Chin was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know there's no going back from this, right? Once that documentary goes public, everything changes." Naomi looked at him with eyes that had seen too much cruelty, endured too much pain, and survived too much betrayal to have any fear left. "Mr. Chin," she said quietly, "everything already changed. I'm just making sure everyone else sees it too. Let me ask you something. If you had evidence that could expose everyone who hurt you, but using it would create absolute chaos, would you do it? Would you burn it all down to tell the truth? Drop your answer in the comments, because what's about to happen at prom is going to make you question everything you think you know about revenge, justice, and the price of speaking truth to power. And if you're not subscribed yet, you need to hit that button right now, because the next part of this story is going to be absolutely explosive. You've come this far. Don't miss the ending. May 18th. Prom night. 7 p.m. The Riverside Country Club looked like something out of a fairy tale. Thousands of string lights were woven through the trees, creating a canopy of stars. The entrance was lined with white roses and hydrangeas. Inside, the ballroom had been transformed with elaborate centerpieces, draped fabric in deep blues and silvers, and a dance floor that gleamed under carefully positioned spotlights. It was the kind of venue that cost more to rent for one night than Naomi's mother made in 3 months. Vivienne Ashford arrived at 7:15 in a limousine. Not just any limousine, but a vintage Rolls-Royce that her father had rented for the occasion. She stepped out in a custom designer gown that had been featured on her Instagram for weeks leading up to this night. Champagne-colored silk that probably cost more than a semester of college tuition. Her hair was styled by a professional who'd come to her house that afternoon. Her makeup was flawless, done by the same artist who worked with local news anchors. Her parents were there to take photos, of course. Her mother in a cocktail dress that coordinated with Vivienne's gown, her father in a suit that screamed old money and country club memberships. They posed on the steps of the country club, Vivienne's smile radiant and perfect, while her mother posted photo after photo to Instagram with captions about her beautiful daughter, and hashtags like #PromQueen and #ProudMom. Blair arrived minutes later in a Tesla, because of course she did. Her gown was modern and architectural, the kind of dress that looked like it belonged in a museum of contemporary art. Black with geometric cutouts that somehow managed to be both edgy and elegant. Her parents took photos with that efficient precision that wealthy people have, documenting the moment without being overly emotional about it. Sienna came in a Mercedes with her mother, Senator Rodriguez herself, who stayed just long enough to be photographed with her daughter before leaving for what she called prior commitments, though everyone knew she just wanted the photo op without having to actually attend a high school prom. Trevor Walsh arrived in his father's BMW wearing a designer tuxedo and a rented Rolex that he kept adjusting on his wrist like he couldn't quite get used to the weight of it. His parents took photos with that proud, beaming expression that parents get when their son is prom king material and has 3 Division I scholarship offers. One by one, Westbridge Academy's elite arrived in their finest, their most expensive, their most carefully curated versions of themselves. The parking lot looked like a luxury car dealership. The entrance looked like a red carpet event. Everyone was posting, streaming, documenting this moment, because at schools like Westbridge, prom wasn't just a dance. It was a status symbol, a statement, a culmination of 4 years of social positioning. And then at 7:40, Naomi Williams arrived. She drove herself in her beat-up Honda Civic and parked in the back of the lot, away from the luxury vehicles. She wore a simple black dress, her mother's from years ago actually, that they'd spent a weekend altering and tailoring to fit Naomi's frame. It was elegant in its simplicity, but it wasn't designer. It wasn't custom. It wasn't going to be featured on anyone's Instagram. She carried camera equipment. Not just a camera, but a laptop, a portable projector, a tripod, and several large portfolio cases that she had to make 2 trips to bring in from her car. Vivienne saw her arriving and couldn't resist one more jab. She walked over with Blair and Sienna, their gowns swishing, their smiles sharp. "Oh, you came," Vivienne said with exaggerated enthusiasm. "I mean, to work. That's so dedicated of you, Naomi." "Really?" Most people would want to actually attend prom, but you're just so committed to your craft. Blair smirked. Did you bring enough equipment? Need help carrying anything? I'd offer, but you know the dress. Sienna laughed. At least you wore black. Very professional. Very staff. Naomi looked at the three of them. These girls who'd spent months trying to break her, who thought they'd won, who were so confident in their superiority that they couldn't even imagine what was about to happen, and smiled. I appreciate the concern, Naomi said calmly. But I have everything I need. She walked past them into the country club, leaving them slightly confused by her composure. Inside, Naomi set up in the corner of the ballroom, exactly where the student council had designated for the student photographer documentation station. She arranged her portfolio displays on stands, positioned her laptop and projector on a table that had been provided, and carefully organized her equipment with the precision of someone who'd planned every detail. Other students started arriving, saw her setup, and assumed it was for the traditional prom slideshow. You know, those montages of photos from the year set to sappy music that play during dinner. They didn't pay much attention to her. The ballroom filled up. By 8 p.m., nearly 300 students were there, along with chaperones, some parents who'd volunteered to help coordinate, and Principal Davidson, who looked pleased with himself for pulling off another successful Westbridge Academy event. At 8:15, Principal Davidson took the microphone at the front of the ballroom. Good evening, Westbridge seniors, he said to applause and cheers. Welcome to what I promise will be an unforgettable evening. You've worked hard for 4 years, and tonight is your night to celebrate everything you've accomplished. More cheers. More applause. Before we begin the dancing, we have the moment you've all been waiting for, the announcement of this year's prom court. The lights dimmed slightly. A drum roll played over the sound system. Your prom king is Trevor Walsh. Trevor walked to the front, waving like he'd won an Olympic medal while his friends cheered and took videos. And your prom queen is Vivienne Ashford. Surprised absolutely no one. The outcome had been obvious since nominations opened. Some people suspected she'd had Blair manipulate the voting system, but no one could prove it, and honestly, even without manipulation she probably would have won. That's how social hierarchies work. Vivienne accepted her crown with tears in her eyes, real or performed it was hard to tell, and took the microphone for her acceptance speech. Oh my gosh, I'm just so honored, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. You guys, this year has been incredible. I've learned so much about sisterhood and supporting each other and being there for your community. Westbridge has taught me that we're strongest when we lift each other up, and I just want to say how grateful I am to be part of such an amazing class. I love you all. The room erupted in applause. Naomi, standing in her corner with her equipment, watched this display of performative emotion and felt nothing. No anger, no bitterness, no pain. Just a cold, calm certainty about what she was about to do. As the applause for Vivienne's speech died down, and as the DJ prepared to start the music for the first dance, Naomi walked toward the front of the ballroom. She didn't rush. She didn't look nervous. She just walked with steady, purposeful steps to where Principal Davidson was standing with the microphone. Excuse me, Principal Davidson, she said clearly. Before the dance begins, I'd like to share my senior art project. It's been selected as a finalist for the National Student Art and Documentary Competition, and I thought tonight would be the perfect opportunity to premiere it. Principal Davidson looked confused but pleased. A student from Westbridge being selected as a national finalist was good for the school's reputation. Of course, Naomi, he said, handing her the microphone. Congratulations on that achievement. Naomi took the microphone and walked to the center of the small stage area. The room was still buzzing with post-prom court excitement. Most students weren't really paying attention. They were talking to friends, taking selfies, checking their phones. Hi everyone, Naomi said into the microphone. Her voice was steady, clear, amplified throughout the ballroom. For those who don't know me, I'm Naomi Williams. I'm a scholarship student here at Westbridge, and for my senior art project, I've been working on a documentary photography series all year. It's titled, The Truth Beneath the Crown. A few people started paying attention now. The title was intriguing, and the mention of documentary work suggested this might be more than just pretty prom photos. This documentary was selected as one of 15 finalists nationwide for the National Student Art and Documentary Competition, Naomi continued. It's already been published on their website, and it's been submitted to several educational institutions and media outlets. But tonight I want to share it with all of you first. The people it's actually about. Now she had the room's attention. Students were turning toward the stage. Chaperones were watching with interest. Principal Davidson was smiling, still thinking this was some kind of artistic achievement to be celebrated. Naomi nodded to Mr. Chin, who was operating the projection system from the tech booth. The lights dimmed. The large screen behind the stage illuminated. The first images were beautiful. Sweeping shots of Westbridge Academy's campus. The historic stone buildings, the perfectly manicured lawns, the iron gates with the school crest. The kind of images you'd see in a school brochure or on the admissions website. Underneath, text appeared, Westbridge Academy. Excellence. Opportunity. Community. There were appreciative murmurs from the audience. The photos were genuinely stunning. Naomi had real talent. Then the images changed. Side-by-side comparisons appeared on the screen. On the left, the beautiful campus. On the right, students sitting alone in cafeterias, isolated in hallways, excluded from groups. On the left, the school motto about community and inclusion. On the right, screenshots of anonymous forum posts attacking scholarship students. On the left, Principal Davidson's welcome speech about how every student matters. On the right, documentation of bullying incidents reported and ignored. The room started to get quieter. Then came the timeline. September 15th, a photograph of Naomi's portfolio scattered across the hallway floor. A screenshot of the Instagram post that went viral. Evidence showing it wasn't an accident. There were 3 previous attempts to orchestrate a collision before the successful one was filmed. October 8th, documentation of the group project. Screenshots of the deleted group chat showing Vivienne, Blair, and Sienna planning to exclude Naomi. Messages where they laughed about making her do all the work. Proof that they never intended to collaborate. October 20th, anonymous forum posts attacking scholarship students. Digital forensic analysis showing all posts originated from 3 IP addresses. 1 traced to Blair's home, 1 to the school student council office during times when only Blair had access, 1 to a VPN service that Blair's credit card had paid for. The murmuring in the room was getting louder now. Parents were leaning forward. Students were pulling out their phones. Vivienne's face had gone pale. November 14th, audio recordings, real ones, not deep fakes, of Vivienne's group mocking other students. Naomi had been wearing a recording device, legal in their state with one-party consent. The voices were crystal clear. Vivienne, scholarship kids are fine for diversity points, but do they have to actually participate in everything? Blair, they take everything so seriously. Like, calm down, it's just high school. Sienna, some people need to remember their place. The room went completely silent. December 18th, the art show Sabotage. Security footage. Naomi had obtained a copy before it was corrupted, showing Vivienne, Blair, and Sienna entering the building at 9:47 p.m. using a copied keycard. Timestamp showing them in the art room during the exact window when the damage occurred. Screenshots of their group chat from that night. Mission accomplished. Problem solved. Parents' faces were changing from confusion to horror. January 12th, the deepfake incident. Technical analysis showing the AI voice cloning software came from an account registered to Blair Chin. Digital fingerprints proving Blair had created the fake audio clips. Evidence that she'd hacked into the school forum to post them from anonymous accounts. Vivienne's father, sitting at a parent table near the front, stood up abruptly. "This is outrageous. Turn this off right now." But Naomi's voice came through the microphone, calm and unwavering. This documentary has been submitted to the National Student Art and Documentary Competition, as I mentioned. But it's also been sent to Yale's admissions office, Stanford's athletic recruitment department, and the State Board of Education. Copies have been provided to the local media outlets and the County School District's Office of Student Affairs. Everything you're seeing has been verified, fact-checked, and legally obtained. The presentation continued. Evidence of academic dishonesty. Screenshots of essay-selling websites with transaction records showing Vivienne's name and credit card. Emails between Trevor and his private tutor where the tutor explicitly states, "Here is your completed college essay as requested." Text messages between Blair and other students where she offers to fix grades for a fee. Evidence of coordinated harassment. A comprehensive timeline showing how Vivienne, Blair, and Sienna planned and executed a months-long campaign. Group chat screenshots where they discuss strategy. Calendar overlays showing that incidents always occurred after their planning sessions. Evidence of sabotage. College application portals showing unauthorized access from IP addresses traced to the school's administrative network. Blair had hacked into the system and altered Naomi's applications, changing recommendation letters, deleting portfolio pieces, sabotaging her chances. Every single piece of evidence was meticulously documented. Dates, times, sources, verification methods. This wasn't a collection of accusations, it was a forensic analysis presented with the precision of a legal proceeding. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Vivienne rushed toward the stage, her face a mask of fury and panic, trying to physically stop the projection. But it was too late. Mr. Chin had the system locked down, and besides, the documentary wasn't just playing on the screen, it was streaming live on the national competition's website for anyone to see. Blair pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen trying to hack into the system and shut it down. But Mr. Chin had anticipated this. He'd isolated the network, blocked all her usual access points and encrypted the controls. Blair Chin, the tech genius who'd weaponized her skills to hurt others, was locked out of her own weapon. Parents were pulling out their phones, some making frantic calls to lawyers, others recording the presentation, others searching online to verify if this documentary was really published where Naomi claimed. Some students were crying. Not Vivienne's friends, but others. Students who'd been bullied throughout the year but had stayed silent because they were afraid. Students who thought they were alone in their suffering. Students who were watching their experiences validated on screen and realizing they weren't imagining it, they weren't being too sensitive, it really had happened. A girl named Rachel, freshman year homecoming court member who'd been systematically excluded after she stopped being useful to Vivienne's social climbing, was sobbing into her friend's shoulder. "I thought I was the only one," she kept saying. "I thought it was just me." Trevor tried to leave, heading for the exits, but his father grabbed his arm. Trevor's father had just watched evidence of his son's college essays being written by someone else. His son's Division I scholarship offers were based on fraudulent academic records. His father's face was red with anger and embarrassment. Sienna's mother, Senator Rodriguez, was already on her phone with lawyers. You could hear her sharp voice even over the chaos. "I don't care what it costs. I want to know if this is actionable. I want to know our options." Principal Davidson was trying to regain control of the situation, but what could he do? The documentary was already public. It was already submitted to competition judges, university admissions offices, and state education boards. The damage, or rather, the revelation of truth, was done. "Everyone please calm down." Principal Davidson shouted into a microphone that someone handed him. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We need to investigate these claims before." "Investigate." Mrs. Patterson's voice cut through the noise. She was standing at the back of the ballroom, tears streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of vindication, of pride, of long-suppressed anger finally finding release. "These aren't claims, Principal Davidson. This is documentation. This is evidence. This is what I've been trying to tell you all year, what you've been dismissing as interpersonal conflicts and misunderstandings." Other teachers were nodding. Mr. Chin stood next to the projection booth, his arms crossed, his expression grim but satisfied. The documentary's final section was playing now. Not more evidence but impact. Interviews with other students who'd been bullied at Westbridge. Statistics on mental health outcomes for bullying victims. Research on institutional complicity in maintaining toxic social hierarchies. And then the final slide. The Truth Beneath the Crown, a documentary study of systemic bullying in elite educational settings. Documentation, resources, and support for bullying victims available at truth-beneath-the-crown.org. Naomi had built an entire website. Not just an expose but a resource. Support hotlines. Mental health resources. Legal information about bullying. An anonymous submission form where other students could share their stories. Links to anti-bullying organizations and advocacy groups. This wasn't just revenge. This was activism. The screen went dark. The lights in the ballroom came back up. Naomi stood at the microphone, perfectly calm, looking out at the chaos she'd created with an expression that was neither triumphant nor apologetic. Just resolute. Vivienne was standing 20 feet away, her perfect makeup running with tears, her crown sitting crooked on her head, staring at Naomi with an expression of absolute disbelief. Blair had given up trying to hack the system and was standing frozen, her phone in her hand, looking lost for the first time all year. Sienna was arguing with her mother in harsh whispers, gesturing angrily. Trevor was being lectured by his father in a corner, his head down, his expensive rented Rolex suddenly feeling very heavy on his wrist. Parents were demanding answers from Principal Davidson, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. And in the middle of all this chaos, Naomi Williams, scholarship student, bullying victim, survivor, stood steady and spoke one final time into the microphone. I spent this entire year being told I didn't belong here, she said, her voice clear and strong. I was excluded, mocked, sabotaged, and humiliated. My college prospects were deliberately destroyed. My art was vandalized. My reputation was attacked with fabricated evidence. And through it all, I was told to keep my head down, to not make waves, to just accept my place in the hierarchy. She paused, looking around the room at all the faces staring at her. But here's what I learned: documentation is resistance. Truth is power. And one person with evidence and courage can expose a system that depends on silence to survive. She set the microphone down gently on the stand. The documentary is public. The evidence is verified. The consequences are inevitable. And for everyone who thought they could destroy me and face no accountability, she looked directly at Vivienne, at Blair, at Sienna, at Trevor. You were wrong. Have you ever wanted to expose the truth about something but you were afraid of the fallout? Have you ever had evidence of wrongdoing but stayed silent because speaking up seemed too risky? I want to know, what would it take for you to stand up and reveal what you know? Drop your answer in the comments below, because what we've just witnessed isn't just a story, it's a question about courage, consequence, and the price we pay for truth. And if you've been following Naomi's journey this far, you absolutely cannot miss the final act. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next, the aftermath, the consequences, the resolution, is going to change everything you think you know about justice in places like Westbridge Academy. Don't miss it. Prom didn't last long after Naomi's documentary finished playing. By 9:30 p.m., parents were gathering their children and leaving the Riverside Country Club in a mass exodus that looked less like the end of a celebration and more like an evacuation. Some families left in angry silence. Others left in heated arguments that echoed across the parking lot. A few parents demanded immediate meetings with Principal Davidson, who stood near the entrance looking like a man watching his career crumble in real time. The beautiful decorations, those thousands of string lights, those elaborate centerpieces, that carefully curated night under the stars aesthetic, suddenly felt obscene. Like set dressing for a play that had just revealed itself to be a tragedy. Naomi was in her corner of the ballroom, methodically packing up her equipment. She disconnected cables with steady hands, collapsed her tripod with practiced efficiency, and carefully stored her laptop in its case. She'd planned this moment for months, but now that it was here, she felt strangely empty. Not regretful. Not triumphant. Just finished. Mrs. Patterson approached her, moving through the chaos like she was walking through a dream. Naomi, Mrs. Patterson said, her voice thick with emotion. You did it? You really did it? Naomi looked up from coiling a cable. I just told the truth. No, Mrs. Patterson said firmly, taking Naomi's hands in hers. You did so much more than that. You documented it. You verified it. You presented it in a way that couldn't be dismissed or ignored or explained away. You created something that will outlast this moment, that will protect other students, that will force this institution to change. That's not just truth-telling. That's courage. Naomi felt tears prick at her eyes for the first time all night. Throughout the presentation, through the chaos, through Vivienne's tears and Blair's panic and the parents' outrage, she'd remained perfectly composed. But Mrs. Patterson's words, the validation from the one teacher who'd believed her all year, finally broke through her armor. I couldn't have done it without you, Naomi said quietly. You were the only one who saw what was happening, who tried to help. I should have done more, Mrs. Patterson said, her own tears starting to fall. I should have pushed harder, demanded more action, refused to accept the administration's excuses. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better. You protected me in the ways you could, Naomi said. You gave me space to work in the art room. You believed me when no one else did. You were a witness. That mattered. Mr. Chin appeared with a dolly to help move Naomi's heavier equipment. As he loaded cases onto it, he said something that made Naomi's breath catch. I suspected what you were doing around February, Mr. Chin said. The amount of time you spent in the darkroom, the obsessive documentation, the way you were organizing everything. I checked the school server and found your backup files. You've been automatically syncing to the cloud through the school network. Naomi's eyes widened. You knew. I knew, Mr. Chin confirmed. And I made sure those files were protected. I created redundant backups, encrypted the directories, and set up alerts so I'd know if anyone tried to access or delete them. When Blair tried to hack into your files in March, yes, she tried, I blocked her and she never even knew I was there. You protected my work, Naomi whispered. Someone had to, Mr. Chin said simply. What was happening to you was wrong. I couldn't stop it directly without proof, but I could make sure that when you were ready to speak, your evidence would still exist. Other students started approaching Naomi as she packed. Not Vivienne's circle, they'd fled or were dealing with their parents, but other students. The ones who'd been silent observers. The ones who'd suffered their own smaller cruelties. The ones who'd been too afraid to speak up. A girl named Jessica, Naomi recognized her from AP history. They'd never spoken, approached with tears streaming down her face. "I was afraid to say anything," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "When they started spreading rumors about me last year, I transferred lunch periods and avoided them and pretended it wasn't happening. I was so afraid that speaking up would make it worse. But you documented everything and you spoke up anyway, and now everyone knows the truth. Thank you. Thank you for being braver than I was." "You're not a coward for surviving," Naomi said gently. "Everyone handles trauma differently. There's no wrong way to protect yourself." But Jessica shook her head. "You didn't just protect yourself. You protected all of us. Everyone they hurt, everyone they would have hurt. You stopped them." 3 more students came forward with similar stories. A sophomore who'd been mocked for her weight. A junior who'd been excluded for being neurodivergent. A senior who'd been sexually harassed by Trevor and had been too afraid to report it because of his status as a star athlete. Each one thanked Naomi. Each one shared their story. Each one cried with relief that someone had finally said out loud what they'd all been experiencing in silence. Naomi listened to each of them, and with each story she understood more fully why she'd had to do this. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even really about justice. It was about breaking the silence that had allowed the cruelty to continue unchallenged. Her mother arrived at 9:45, having driven straight from work after Naomi had texted her a simple message: "It's done. I need you." Her mother walked into the ballroom and saw her daughter surrounded by teachers and students, saw the respect and gratitude in their faces, and understood immediately that something profound had just happened. She walked straight to Naomi and pulled her into a fierce embrace. "I'm so proud of you, baby," her mother whispered into Naomi's hair. So proud. Not because of what you exposed, but because of how you survived. You could have been destroyed by what they did to you. Instead, you documented it. You're so strong, baby. Stronger than I ever was at your age." Naomi melted into her mother's arms, finally letting herself feel the exhaustion and emotion of the past 8 months. Together, they carried Naomi's equipment out to the car. Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Chen helped, the 4 of them making trips back and forth in comfortable silence. As they were loading the last case into the trunk, Naomi heard raised voices from the front of the country club. Vivienne was standing with her father near their rented Rolls-Royce. Her father was gesturing angrily, his voice carrying across the parking lot even though Naomi couldn't make out the words. Vivienne's mother stood to the side on her phone, her face tight with stress. Vivienne's perfect crown was gone. Her makeup was streaked with tears. Her designer gown looked wilted somehow, like even the fabric understood that the illusion had been shattered. She looked up and made direct eye contact with Naomi across the parking lot. For a long moment they just stared at each other. 2 girls from completely different worlds who'd been locked in a brutal conflict for 8 months. There was no hatred in Vivienne's eyes now. No smugness. No cruelty. Just shock and the dawning realization of what she'd done and what it was going to cost her. Naomi didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Didn't look away. She just held Vivienne's gaze, and in that moment, a recognition passed between them. Vivienne understood that Naomi had won, not because she'd been cruel in return, but because she'd been meticulous. She'd been patient. She'd been smarter. And Vivienne also understood that this victory had come at a cost to Naomi that no one should have had to pay. Naomi got into her mother's car. As they pulled out of the parking lot, she looked back one more time to see Vivienne still standing there, watching her leave, the ruins of her perfect life scattered around her like the petals of a dying rose. The week following prom was a whirlwind of consequences that rippled outward like shockwaves from an earthquake. On Monday morning, Vivienne Ashford received an email from Yale University. Her early acceptance had been rescinded. The email was formal, professional, and devastating. Upon review of information regarding violations of academic integrity policies during your high school career, Yale University has made the decision to withdraw your offer of admission. This decision is final and not subject to appeal. Her father tried to intervene. He called everyone he knew, board members, alumni, donors, anyone with influence. But Yale's honor code violations were non-negotiable. Evidence of purchased essays and fabricated recommendations couldn't be overlooked, not even for legacy families who'd been donating for 3 generations. Vivienne's Instagram, which had 47,000 followers on prom night, was deleted by Tuesday afternoon. Whether she deleted it herself or her parents forced her to, no one knew. But the carefully curated image she'd built for years vanished overnight. Blair Chen's situation was even more serious. On Tuesday morning, 2 police officers showed up at her house with a warrant. She was being charged with unauthorized access to computer systems, a felony under federal law. The evidence was irrefutable. Server logs, IP addresses, digital fingerprints showing she'd hacked into Westbridge Academy's administrative systems multiple times over the course of the year. Her parents hired the best lawyers money could buy, but even they admitted the evidence was damning. Blair was looking at potential juvenile detention, mandatory community service, and a permanent record that would haunt her college prospects and future employment opportunities. The tech programs that had been competing to recruit her, MIT, Stanford, Caltech, all quietly withdrew their interest. No one wanted to admit a talented hacker who'd used her skills for malicious purposes. Siena Rodriguez's consequences were more political. Her mother, Senator Rodriguez, released a statement on Wednesday distancing herself from her daughter's actions. "I am deeply disappointed to learn of my daughter's involvement in these incidents. Bullying is unacceptable regardless of social status, and my daughter will be held accountable for her actions." It was a calculated political move to protect the senator's career, and it worked for her, but it destroyed Siena. By Thursday, she'd been enrolled in a boarding school in Connecticut, essentially exiled from her home state, sent away so her mother could claim she was taking action without having to actually deal with her daughter. Trevor Walsh lost all 3 of his Division I scholarship offers. The evidence that his college essays had been written by paid tutors violated NCAA rules about academic fraud. The universities that had been recruiting him sent terse emails withdrawing their offers. His father, who'd been bragging about his son's athletic future for years, was humiliated in front of his country club friends and business associates. Trevor would end up at a Division III school with no scholarship, no glory, and a reputation that would follow him for years. Principal Davidson announced a comprehensive review of school culture and bullying policies on Friday, which everyone knew was code for, "We're scrambling to avoid a lawsuit and PR disaster." He looked exhausted during the announcement, reading from a prepared statement with the enthusiasm of someone reading their own resignation letter. Which, as it turned out, wasn't far from the truth. By the following Monday, the school board announced that Principal Davidson would be pursuing other opportunities, effective at the end of the school year. He was fired, though they'd never used that word publicly. The school board launched an investigation into institutional failures that had allowed the bullying to continue unchecked. Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Chen were both officially commended for their support of students and asked to participate in developing new policies. And Naomi? On Thursday afternoon, she received an email with the subject line, "National Student Art and Documentary Competition Winner Announcement." She'd won first place in the documentary category. The prize included a $15,000 scholarship, national recognition, and publication in major art magazines. But more importantly, the publicity from winning meant her story went national. Local news picked it up first. Students' Brave documentary exposes elite schools' culture of bullying. Then regional outlets. Then national media. By Friday, Naomi was receiving interview requests from major news networks, invitations to speak at anti-bullying conferences, and messages from documentarians who wanted to feature her work. Her college prospects, which had been deliberately sabotaged by Blair's hacking, were suddenly better than ever. RSD sent her a personal letter with a full scholarship offer. So did 6 other top art schools. Universities that had rejected her in February were now reaching out to apologize for administrative errors and invite her to reapply. Her mother cried when the RISD letter arrived. They sat together at their small kitchen table in their modest apartment, reading the letter over and over, hardly believing it was real. "You did it, baby," her mother whispered. "You're going to your dream school. On a full scholarship. After everything they tried to take from you, you still won." Naomi looked at the letter, the official Rhode Island School of Design letterhead, the words "Full Merit Scholarship," the congratulations on her extraordinary documentary work, and felt something she hadn't felt in 8 months. Hope. Graduation day arrived on a perfect June morning with clear blue skies and a light breeze that made the ceremony feel almost magical. Naomi Williams stood backstage in her graduation gown, her valedictorian medal hanging around her neck. She'd always had the highest grades in her class. Even through the bullying, even through the sabotage, she'd maintained straight A's because her future had depended on it. But being valedictorian meant something different now. It meant she got to address the entire school one final time. Principal Davidson's replacement, Dr. Marianne Foster, introduced her with words that felt like vindication. Our valedictorian this year exemplifies not just academic excellence but moral courage. Please welcome Naomi Williams. Naomi walked to the podium to applause that felt genuine for the first time all year. She looked out at her class of 2024, 300 students in caps and gowns, their families filling the stands, teachers seated in the front rows. And there, in the middle section of the student seating, sat Vivienne Ashford. Not on the stage where she would have been as prom queen and honor student. Not in the special seating for scholarship recipients or award winners. Just in the regular audience, her face carefully neutral, watching. Naomi took a breath and began her speech. When I started at Westbridge Academy 3 years ago, I believed that excellence was enough. That if I worked hard, if I was talented, if I earned my place, I would belong here. I learned very quickly that I was wrong. A ripple of discomfort went through the audience. This year taught me that silence protects the powerful and abandons the vulnerable. That documentation is resistance. That art can be activism. And that one person telling the truth can inspire others to do the same. She paused, looking directly at the students who'd approached her after prom with their own stories. We all survived something here. Some of us survived more than others. Some of us carry scars that will take years to heal. But we survived, and that matters. What matters more is what we do with that survival. I could have stayed silent. I could have kept my head down and just tried to get through. Many people told me that's what I should do. But silence doesn't protect us. It protects the people who hurt us. Silence allows systems of cruelty to continue unchallenged. Silence tells the next victim that they're alone, that no one will believe them, that speaking up is pointless. So I didn't stay silent. I documented. I verified. I built a case that couldn't be dismissed. And when I finally spoke, I spoke with evidence and clarity and an unwavering commitment to truth. She looked at Mrs. Patterson, who was crying again, and Mr. Chin, who was nodding with approval. None of us did this alone. Every system of injustice depends on good people staying quiet. Every victory against that injustice requires good people finding their courage. To the teachers who believed me, who protected me, who helped me, thank you. You showed me that institutions can change when the people within them choose integrity over convenience. Finally, she looked at Vivienne. To those who hurt others this year, and you know who you are, I don't hate you. I hope you learn from this. I hope you become people who build others up instead of tearing them down. I hope you use your privilege and power for good instead of for cruelty. Because you have so much potential to do good in the world, and it would be a waste to spend your lives being remembered only for the pain you caused. She turned back to the rest of the graduating class. We're leaving Westbridge today. Some of us are going to amazing universities. Some are starting careers. Some are taking time to figure out what's next. Whatever path you're on, remember this: your voice matters. Your truth matters. Your courage to speak up when you see injustice matters. Don't stay silent to keep the peace. Don't look away to avoid discomfort. Don't accept cruelty as inevitable. Document. Verify. Speak. And when you do, speak so clearly and with so much evidence that no one can deny what you're saying. She held up her phone, showing the website she'd built. Truth-beneath-the-crown.org has received over 50 submissions from students at other schools sharing their own stories. It's become a resource for victims, a guide for documentation, and proof that what happened here isn't unique, it's systemic. But systems can be changed. We just have to be brave enough to try. So here's my challenge to all of you. Graduate from this place and become people who protect the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. Become people who use your voices to amplify truth instead of spreading lies. Become people who build community instead of hierarchy. They tried to break me. Instead, I documented them. And in doing so, I broke a system that depended on my silence to survive. She stepped back from the podium. Congratulations, class of 2024. Make it count. The standing ovation was immediate and thunderous. Real this time. Not performative, not obligatory, but genuine. Students stood, parents stood, teachers stood. Even some of the school board members who'd been complicit in the institutional failures stood and applauded. Naomi walked back to her seat, and as she passed the front row of teachers, Mrs. Patterson reached out and squeezed her hand. Mr. Chin gave her a subtle nod that conveyed more pride than words could express. After the ceremony, after the diplomas were distributed and the caps were thrown and the official photos were taken, Naomi stood with her mother, Mrs. Patterson, and Mr. Chin near the school entrance, taking final pictures together. That's when Vivienne approached. She walked slowly, almost hesitantly, like someone approaching a wild animal they don't want to startle. Her parents weren't with her. They'd left immediately after the ceremony, probably to avoid other parents and the awkward conversations that would ensue. "Naomi," Vivienne said quietly. Can we talk for a minute?" Naomi's mother tensed, protective, but Naomi touched her arm gently. "It's okay, Mama." She stepped away from her group, and Vivienne followed her to a quieter spot near the garden. They stood facing each other for a moment, these two girls who'd been locked in such a brutal conflict, now on the other side of it. "I don't expect forgiveness," Vivienne said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know what I did to you was unforgivable. I was cruel and calculating, and I tried to destroy you because I felt threatened by your talent and your authenticity. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. Not because of the consequences I'm facing, but because I hurt you. Because I hurt a lot of people. And I'm ashamed of who I was this year." Naomi studied Vivienne's face, looking for signs of manipulation or performance. But what she saw was genuine remorse. Vivienne had lost everything: her college acceptance, her social status, her carefully curated image, and somewhere in that loss she'd apparently found something like self-awareness. "I hope you mean that," Naomi said carefully. "I hope you become someone who does." "I'm starting therapy," Vivienne offered. "My parents insisted, but honestly, I need it. I need to figure out why I thought any of that was okay. Why I hurt people to maintain power I didn't even need." Naomi nodded. "That's a start." "I saw your documentary," Vivienne continued. "I mean, I lived it, but seeing it from your perspective, seeing the pattern, the coordination, the deliberate cruelty, I didn't realize how much damage we were doing. Or maybe I knew and I just didn't care. Either way, it was wrong. So wrong." "Yes," Naomi agreed. "It was." They stood in silence for a moment. "I'm going to community college," Vivienne said. "Starting over. My parents wanted to send me to boarding school in Europe to escape the scandal, but I told them no. I need to stay here and face what I did. Running away won't help me become a better person." "That's actually mature of you," Naomi said, surprised. "Yeah, well, losing everything has a way of maturing you fast," Vivienne said with a bitter smile. I hope someday you can forgive me. Not now, obviously, but someday. And I hope I become someone worth forgiving." Naomi considered this. "I hope that too. For both our sakes." They didn't hug. They didn't exchange phone numbers or promise to stay in touch. But there was an acknowledgement between them, a recognition that they'd both been changed by this year, albeit in very different ways. Vivienne walked away back to where her car was parked, alone. Naomi returned to her mother, Mrs. Patterson, and Mr. Chin, who were waiting for her with understanding expressions. "You okay?" her mother asked. "Yeah," Naomi said. "I think I am." They walked together toward the parking lot, passing by the main entrance of Westbridge Academy one final time. Inside the lobby, mounted on the wall in a place of honor, was Naomi's documentary work. The school had purchased prints of her photographs and created a permanent installation with a plaque that read, "The Truth Beneath the Crown," a reminder that courage, documentation, and truth-telling can change institutions. It would hang there for years, a reminder to every student who walked through those doors that silence protects the powerful, but truth protects everyone else. As they reached the parking lot, Naomi looked back at Westbridge Academy one final time. The building that had been both a dream and a nightmare. The place where she'd been broken and rebuilt. The institution that had tried to crush her and instead had been forced to change because of her. "They tried to break me," Naomi said quietly, echoing the words from her documentary. "Instead, I broke the system." "And sometimes," her mother added, putting an arm around her daughter's shoulders, "that's exactly what needs to happen." 3 months later, Naomi Williams would move into her dorm at Rhode Island School of Design on a full scholarship. She'd major in documentary photography and social justice art. Her thesis project would be featured in galleries across the country. She'd become an advocate for anti-bullying initiatives and work with schools to implement better documentation and reporting systems. But more than any of that, she'd lived knowing that she'd survived. That she'd spoken truth to power. That she'd refused to stay silent when silence was easier. And in her modest apartment 40 minutes from the campus she once attended, her mother would keep a framed copy of Naomi's valedictorian speech on the wall, along with the letter from RSD, and a small note that Naomi had written on graduation day. "Mama, we made it. Despite everything, we made it. I love you." They had made it. Against all odds, through all the cruelty, past all the obstacles designed to keep people like them out, they had made it. And that victory, earned through courage and documentation and unwavering truth-telling, was worth more than any crown could ever be. So let me ask you one final question. If you could go back to a moment in your life when you stayed silent about something wrong, would you speak up now? Would you document it, verify it, and expose it, knowing the chaos it would create? Think about that and drop your answer in the comments. Because Naomi's story isn't just a story, it's a blueprint for resistance, a guide for survival, and a reminder that one person with evidence and courage can change everything. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that truth matters more than peace, then hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere out there, there's another Naomi Williams sitting alone in a cafeteria, documenting her truth, waiting for the courage to speak. And maybe, just maybe, this story will be what gives her that courage. Thank you for watching. And remember, documentation is resistance. Truth is power. And your voice matters more than you know.